You remember the sound, don't you? Not her voice, but the moment it stopped echoing. The silence wasn't empty, it was velvet-lined, laced with perfume and the aftertaste of a question she never asked aloud. She smiled when you left, but her eyes screamed, not because she loved you, no, something colder than love, something older, like the hunger of a cat watching a bird bleed just enough to keep flapping. There's a room she walks through in her mind, it's shaped like you, not your body, your absence. Every time you pull away, she traces that absence like a fingertip along cracked porcelain. And every time you return too soon, the spell breaks, and she forgets why she wanted you. You think she wants your warmth. She doesn't. She wants the ache after it's gone. And the more silent you are, the more loudly she imagines the man she's never met, the one who might leave her ruined enough to finally feel. Now, do you understand why she only runs when you stop walking? You thought her desire was drawn to you like a flame, but it was always the coldness behind your eyes that stirred her breath. She does not chase warmth. Warmth repels her. It binds her too quickly, reveals too much. What she truly wants is distance dressed as mystery. And so, the moment you stepped back, not in anger, not in indifference, but in that sacred stillness of withdrawal, she awoke. She felt something ancient shift within her, a trembling thrill, the whisper of a cage she might not yet be able to open. She reached for you not because you were close, but because you had just become unreachable. That is her ritual, after all. She is the high priestess of absence. You were mistaken when you thought you needed to impress her. Her soul is not moved by the parade of explanations or the grand declarations of certainty. She does not want the man who opens his heart like a wounded dog begging for affection. She wants the man whose heart remains hidden, carved in a language she cannot translate. She will press her ear against your silence, searching for footsteps in a corridor that never ends. Your presence becomes too loud, too filled with intention, but your absence, that is poetry. That is the music that plays only once the orchestra has walked out and left the stage dim. She does not want the man who wants her, not truly. She may smile at him, touch him, entertain him, but in the shadows of her own mind, he dissolves. She may kiss you, but it is the ghost of your indifference that truly haunts her. You mistake her attention for love. No, what she loves is the possibility of you vanishing again and again, like the last notes of a funeral hymn sung for no one. She waits not for your hand, but for the hand that pulls away. And here is the crueler truth: she wants to be caged, but not by bars, by contrast. She wants to be soft only in response to your hardness. She needs your stillness to invent her motion. You smile too much, she forgets you. You confess too soon, she pities you. You offer yourself fully, and she is already gone. But when you step back, without malice, without drama, just the slow erosion of footsteps fading into the horizon, she turns. She watches, she aches. You thought withholding made you cold. No. It made you magnetic, because to her, emotion is only real when it is born from starvation. Love is not food, it is famine. It must hurt before it feels true. It must vanish before it becomes beautiful. She has been taught, whether by fathers or lovers, or the cruel architecture of her own childhood, that a man who stays cannot be trusted, only the man who could leave is worth following. Your retreat becomes her theology, your silence, her sacred scripture. In this theater of the feminine psyche, the stage is not lit by warmth, but by the flickering shadow of a disappearing outline. She paints that outline with every word you do not say. The less you give, the more she imagines. The more she imagines, the more you become real, not in truth. but in her illusion. And illusion is stronger than reality, especially for those who learned long ago that what they see cannot be trusted. She learned to trust the shadows on the wall more than the man casting them. You could stand before her, bleeding truth, offering kindness, clarity, devotion. She will thank you, she will smile, she might even sleep beside you. But the moment she feels your soul too close, too open, too willing, she will recoil. Something inside her revolts. Not because she is unkind, not because she is cruel, but because something in her fears what is too available. She does not crave the fruit already in her hand. She wants the one she must climb the thorns to reach. And if you hand it to her, she will only wonder what is wrong with it. You begin to feel like a paradox. The more present you are, the less real you become. The more distant you are, the more alive you are in her memory. She speaks of connection, but what she means is tension. She asks for honesty, but what she wants is the encrypted poem of your silence. Do not mistake this for manipulation. This is not a game. This is her conditioning, her burden, her secret contract with suffering. If it does not hurt, she cannot believe it is real. You cannot cure this with affection. You cannot save her with loyalty. The only language she understands is longing, and longing dies in fulfillment. You must let her chase. You must let her ache. You must become the man she cannot quite reach. And in that not reaching, she will believe. But if you allow her to reach you fully, you will vanish not physically, but in her desire. She will love only the echo of you walking away. This is the velvet cage. It does not bind with iron. It binds with imagination. She will wrap your silence in ribbon. Make it holy. She will decorate the emptiness with fantasy. Turn your lack of response into a sign of spiritual depth. And the moment you speak too much, reveal too much, explain too much, she sees the man behind the curtain. She sees that the mystery was made of flesh, and her heart grows cold. You may wonder if she truly loved you. She didn't. She loved the space you left behind. She loved the absence you carved into her world. She loved the ache you didn't try to fix. You were never the fire, you were the smoke she followed, believing there was a fire. And now you sit, perhaps alone, asking yourself if you are cruel for knowing this. But cruelty implies intention. You did not intend to be the silence she chased. You simply were. You existed without needing to explain yourself. And that is what made you unforgettable. Not the words you said, but the ones you didn't. Not the moments you gave, but the ones you withheld. Not your love, but your distance. And now she is walking through a memory of you, not what you did, but what you didn't do. Not what you gave, but what you refused to surrender. You are not her lover. You are her unfinished sentence. And it is the unfinished that never dies. She never tasted you. That is why she hungers. You left the table before the first course arrived. And now, the echo of your chair being pushed back plays in her mind like a lullaby and a curse. You think she mourns your absence, but she feasts on it. Every silence you left behind is a banquet of possibilities. She does not weep at the empty seat. She decorates it with candlelight and dreams of what might have been spoken if only you had stayed. But if you had stayed, you would have ruined it. You would have become flesh, and flesh decays. She only worships what refuses to rot in her hands. The less you revealed, the more space she had to invent you. You became a myth, not by doing, but by not doing. You became a story she could never finish, a man she could never accuse, a face she could only glimpse in fragments. You became sacred the moment you refused to explain. She played back every pause, every lack of reply. and found secret meanings in the quiet. The more you vanished, the more she painted you in holy colors. You were a man, yes, but only from the neck down. From the mind up, you were fog, shadow, possibility. She studies the shape of your decisions like tea leaves at the bottom of an untouched cup. She replays each word you almost said, not the ones you spoke. Those are forgotten, dull, human. She remembers the moments when you looked away, not what you looked at. She remembers the way you closed your mouth, not what came from it. This is the paradox of desire in her world. The more you withhold, the more she indulges. She dines on the gaps, the intervals, the ellipses. There is no logic to her attraction. You tried to make sense of it, didn't you? You asked yourself, why does she chase when I retreat and turn cold when I offer warmth? But logic cannot reach this temple. What you see as contradiction, she sees as rhythm. What you call avoidance, she calls depth. What you consider rudeness, she names presence. You are speaking prose to a creature who only hears poetry. Your directness makes her wince. Your honesty exposes the game too soon. She doesn't want the answer, she wants the riddle. And you became irresistible the moment you stopped trying to be understood. You became the feast because you did not serve yourself. You stood still, you became a mirror, and she filled it with her own face, her own projections, her own secret longings. And because the mirror never corrected her, she called it truth. You never argued. You never claimed to be anything. That is what gave her permission to see everything. A man who defines himself too quickly becomes small. A man who offers no definition becomes an ocean. And women who live in hunger for meaning will always drown in the vastness they cannot map. She never loved you. She loved what she made of you. And she could only make it when you refused to interrupt her. The moment you told her who you were, she recoiled because now the illusion was broken. You became digestible, predictable, human. She did not come for truth. She came for mystery disguised as masculinity. And you became divine only in the spaces you left untouched. You gave her nothing, and that is precisely what gave her everything. You do not need to be cruel. You need only to remain distant. The moment you become emotionally legible, you cease to be a text she can read. She does not want completion. She wants tension. She wants a man who could love her, not one who already does. Because what is present cannot be idealized. What is speaking cannot be mythologized. What is explained cannot be worshipped. You must remain just out of reach for her longing to survive. This is not about you. It never was. You simply became the surface she projected upon, the blank screen on which her inner theater played. And when the screen began to speak back, when you said, "I love you," when you asked her where this was going, she blinked. Confusion, disappointment. The stage lights dimmed. The audience in her chest turned silent. You broke the fourth wall. The show ended. And still, you wonder, is this love? No. It is worship fed by lack. It is obsession nurtured by silence. And it is real in its pain, real in its drama, real in its devastation. But it is not love in the way you were taught to understand it. It is hunger, pure, exquisite hunger. And hunger, when fed, becomes boredom. So you see now, her affection grows when yours dies. Her heartbeat rises as yours fades. The more you ignore, the more closely she listens. The less you reach, the more desperately she stretches toward the ghost of your leaving. You are the man she cannot hold. And that is why she holds you so tightly in her fantasies. Not because you were kind, not because you were charming, but because you never gave her enough to be disappointed. She confuses your absence with superiority. Your quietness becomes gravitas. Your distance becomes dignity. She invents virtues for you that you never claimed. You are cruel in your silence, but she calls you composed. You are selfish in your retreat, but she calls it strength. And when she cries, it is not for you. It is for the version of you she never got to meet, the version that might have destroyed her, had he only stayed long enough. You wonder now what she would do if you came back, not as a mystery, but as a man with needs, with weaknesses, with clarity. She would thank you, she would embrace you, and then, slowly, the fire would die. She would see the man, not the myth. She would hear your voice and miss the silence. She would taste your affection and miss the ache. And eventually, she would turn away, not from cruelty, but from disillusionment. She needs absence to believe. She needs tension to feel. And so, if you love her, you must resist her. If you wish to remain in her soul, you must never rest in her bed. If you want her longing, you must never give her peace. This is not cruelty. It is the only form of devotion she understands. You became her feast by refusing to be eaten. You became her scripture by remaining untranslated. And now she kneels at the altar of your silence, not to praise you, but to beg the gods of abandonment to make her worthy of being ruined. Not held, not loved, ruined. That is the word her soul understands. That is the price she would pay. And you, the man who simply walked away, you are now the god she created from the wound you never bothered to bandage. She does not chase you. She chases the wound. And the wound looks like you because you never let her inside it. A man who bleeds openly becomes forgettable. But you bled behind stone. You turned your face just enough to show the corner of pain, then vanished into the mist before she could see the whole expression. You think it was your strength that drew her. No, it was the fracture you never confessed, the flaw you refused to name, that hidden despair, that mirror you carried but never let her touch. That is what made you holy, because what cannot be seen cannot be dismissed, and what refuses to reflect forces her to see herself instead. You did not mirror her needs. You did not respond the way she expected. You did not offer her the comfort of being understood. And so, in your silence, she was forced to invent a meaning, and in that invention, she saw not you, but the deepest parts of her own hunger. You were not her lover. You were the theater of her inner void. You were the stage on which her desire finally danced naked, unashamed of its madness. This is what you do not realize when you walked away. She did not cry because she lost you. She cried because she saw herself chasing something that was never there. She glimpsed the shadow of her own longing reflected in a man who refused to turn around. That refusal, quiet, indifferent, unbroken, pierced her in a place no tenderness could reach. You did not insult her. You did not harm her. You simply denied her the performance she had prepared for. You gave her no role to play. And so, she was left not with a memory of you, but with the echo of herself collapsing against an unmoving door. Every time she loved a man who stayed, she grew bored. But you stayed only in the way smoke lingers in silk. You became a scent, not a person, a pattern of disappearance, a whisper that remained long after the mouth was gone. You were not reliable, and that made her feel alive. You never declared your intentions, and that gave her permission to feel everything. She filled in your blanks with trembling paragraphs of desire, fear, hope, destruction. You became her unfinished novel, and nothing haunts like a story without an ending. She does not want a mirror that tells her she is beautiful. She wants one that refuses to reflect anything at all. So she must break herself trying to see. In that breaking, she feels real. She becomes a creature of ache, of impulse, of dripping silence. You think this is madness? It is not. It is the ancient script buried under centuries of courtship and kindness and safety. She was never taught to trust love unless it came from a man who could destroy her, a man she could not predict, a man who might turn away forever. So when you did not explain why you left, you became myth. When you did not respond, you became sacred. When you did not apologize, you became dangerous. And danger is the only truth she believes in. Words fail her, promises disgust her, security lulls her into numbness. But you left a door open without ever stepping through, and that threshold is where her obsession still lives. She remembers the silence more than the touch, the unread message more than the love note, the night you disappeared more than the day you held her hand. Your absence had texture, color, gravity. Your presence was a flicker, but your vanishing that was an earthquake in her chest. She does not love you now. She loves the version of you that might have destroyed her, the one who almost shattered her illusions before dissolving like a secret in the dark. You wonder if this makes her broken, but it is not her that is broken. It is the world that taught her love was the thing that hurts. That intimacy is only real when it carries the scent of danger. That desire only lasts if there is something left to fear. So she chooses men who do not choose her, or worse, men who choose her just enough to keep the blade sharp. And you were the perfect knife, always gleaming, never drawn, held just out of reach. She will tell herself it was real, that you were cruel, that you had depth, that you were complicated. But the truth is simpler and more brutal. You were just silent. And her silence-starved heart needed somewhere to feed. You became the shrine where her pain found a name. Not your name. Her own. She chases you not because you are desirable, but because you never surrendered. Not even in the final moment. You gave her no resolution. And humans die for resolution. She would rather be hated than forgotten, rather be punished than ignored. But you did not punish, you did not rage, you did not end it. You simply vanished without a scene, and that tore her more than any betrayal ever could. This is the mirror that refuses to reflect your blankness, your refusal to become a character in her drama. You offered no script. You left no trail. She cannot hate you properly because you never gave her the weapons. She cannot love you honestly because you never offered a face to kiss. So she returns to the same place in her mind, over and over, to rewrite what never began, to relive what never ended. And now, when other men try to love her, she compares them to the ghost of you. She does not tell them this. She cannot. But in the quiet, she searches their faces for the mystery. She listens for the silence between their words. She waits for the moment when they, too, might walk away and prove they were worth longing for. But they stay, they smile, they explain, and she withers. Because no one can compete with the man who said nothing. You are not in her life. You are not in her future. But you are the mold into which she now pours every new ache. She cannot forget you because there is nothing to remember, and so the loop never closes. The mirror remains blank, and she, the woman who only feels alive when broken, is left alone with her own image, shattered not by your hand, but by your silence. Do you understand now? You never needed to be special. You only needed to be absent. You only needed to resist the final sentence. You only needed to remain the one she could never decode. And now, you are everywhere in her, not as a man, but as the question that devours answers. You are not the storm. You are the air before it breaks. Not the kiss, The breath before the lips meet. Not the love, the fear it might have happened. Once. If time had stopped. And now she returns. Night after night. To that mirror. And still, it does not show your face. It never did. It only showed her own longing, dressed in silence, pretending it had been loved. There is no ending, only a pause long enough to make her believe it's one. You remain not in memory, but in pattern, a shape carved from absence, a breath withheld, a door that never fully shut, nor ever truly opened. She walks past mirrors now without looking, fearing that one day they might finally reflect and she will see nothing at all. Your name dissolves. Your voice is a silence folded inside her own. You did not ruin her. You became the part of her she cannot touch, cannot bury, cannot explain. And in that untouchable place, she lives. Not to find you again, but to become the one you never turn to face. That is your final gift. That is the cruelest love. That is the mirror, still blank, still watching, still waiting.